Hello everybody, that was incredibly weird. Just before I went live, I lost connection. Hello Soldier, hello Cowabunga. I hope that everybody is doing really good. It's nice to see people joining in on here now. It's just me tonight. What I thought I'd do, because I am coming towards the end of doing these Chit-Chat Tuesdays. I've really absolutely loved doing them. And I'd like to thank both Lindsay and Jon for allowing this space for me to do these Chit-Chat Tuesdays. I remember when Lindsay and Jon used to regularly do the Chit-Chat Tuesdays. It was one of the things I always used to look forward to a week and tune in. And when they were doing the Spiritualist Church, and then later on they're doing the football, I kind of thought, oh, I love these Chit-Chat Tuesdays. I love them to keep going. But it's kind of that sort of time where I'm doing like a new adventure, and I've started a new YouTube channel, Paul Goddard Paranormal, which is in the description of this video. Now Lindsay and Jon said yes, absolutely, it's fine for you to promote or sort of say about this new channel that's coming up. By mid-February, hopefully, fingers crossed, depending on things are, you'll start seeing content going on. But also tonight, I'm not just sharing this on the Exploring the Afterlife channel and on their Facebook and on their YouTube. It's also on my main, well, I call it main channel because it's got the most subscriber on, but my first channel. And the reason I'm putting it on the first channel is because I've got in the description Lindsay and Jon's Exploring the Afterlife, because you know, it's also nice to promote them. So if you're watching this from my channel and love the paranormal, then Exploring the Afterlife is a channel for you. So you can click and subscribe to their channel as well. But I hope everybody's doing really good. And what I'm going to do is share some clips from the past. Diane, how are you? I hope you're doing really good. Share some clips from the past. I hope you enjoy going down sort of the memory lane. First started doing these on the 1st of March last year, and before then I was actually a guest. So my first clip I'm going to show is when I appeared as a guest on Exploring the Afterlife, and it's quite interesting to see how I've changed throughout the years of doing this, even though it's quite recently, really.
Let's see. If anybody has more questions, pop them in.
I can see Patricia asked about if anybody's been regressed who wasn't a human in a past life. It doesn't happen too often. I've had a whale, and I've had somebody who said they were an ape. They're the only two I've had.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. But you know, I mean, it's true though, that, isn't it? Because in certain beliefs, we can come back as animals. So if that was a past life, then yeah, it would come forward. Wow, I find that question very interesting.
I'm coming back as Fifi.
He says he's coming back as dog because he gets more attention. Do you know? That's interesting.
I've never had anybody swinging on trees or anything like that.
No. Dear. Nanny Lynn's put, wow, really, Paul?
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
So interesting.
So I'm just...
Any more questions?
Is there anything else you want to mention?
Oh, right. Okay. Well, as when I do my live shows with people, I think the important thing that I always try and put into the show is that past lives are wonderful and they can teach us an awful lot, but it's always important to live this life to the full. So I always sort of Nadine Starr, I often finish with a poem by her, which was sort of, if I live my life over again. And what I often say to people, if you find, because I'm always, people should live their life, go for their dreams. And I mean, not everybody wants to live in a mansion and be a successful business. Some people just want to have contented lives. Whatever you want to have in life, is just to really go for it. And I say that to people, that imagine that it is your last day. You're kind of in your 80s, maybe 90s. Some always like to say people have got to that sort of age, but you're looking back over your life and you think to yourself, I wish I'd done this, 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 and this. If you kind of remind yourself, and sometimes if you don't make those subtle changes, because even if you make a small change over time, it ends up being quite a big change. If you don't do that, then by the end of life, you'd just be regretting it. And people said there'd be nothing worse than looking over your life, forced to see a videotape of all the, I could have done this. I could have tried another go at doing amateur acting. I could have written that book. I could have travelled to Kilimanjaro. And if you've got those regrets, I think that's such a sad thing. And that's what happens in past lives as well. You know, sometimes people regret the things they didn't do in that life, so don't make it happen in this one.
Yeah.
So there we go. I hope you enjoyed seeing that. Let me get that down. A couple of things from Soldier. Yeah, if you're happy to, I'd be honoured and delighted. If you're happy to, thank you, Soldier. And yes, oh my God, look at John with no hair or beard. He looks miles better now. Yeah, he kind of. I think when you kind of got more hair, I think that it kind of, you know, I've always liked hair on my head, but I do remember I said it a little bit shorter, and when I had it cut, it was actually a lot shorter. And I think when you have less hair, for a lot of people, it tends to sort of harden the face a little bit. Don't know what you think of. Wendy, how are you doing yourself? So tonight we're just having a little bit of a look over some of the past Chit-Chat Tuesdays. I just started with one of the Chit-Chat Tuesdays that I was invited on when Lindsay and Jon were doing them on the Tuesday, and I thought it'd be nice to go down memory lane. So if anybody has any questions at all about any of the guests that have appeared, anything that I've experienced on it, then please do fire down your questions. I'd be delighted to answer them. So it's lovely to see all these people join in now, and hello to you. We're going to get some up now. Some people might want to know, how did I choose these orders? It wasn't like I was choosing my best favourite ones. I kind of between 7 and 8 minute long clips that I've kind of chosen of 7 different guests. And the reason why I did this is, one, two things I specifically wanted to have in there, or 3 actually. One, definitely my wonderful friend Lynn, who has just always been there for me. I wanted to have Neil's story, because right at the very end of his talk he said something which I think, although it was meant for Christmas, I think that it's something that we should remember all the time. But all the others, I looked through the YouTube channel and I was just going through the ones that were appearing first when I put popular on that I did. So it was not like I had any particular favoritism to anybody. I know YouTube has a different, probably popular to maybe some others were even more popular on Facebook. When I say popular, I don't mean that they were more popular guests. What I mean is they were looked at more times. But for me, it's easier to look on YouTube. So, oh, let's have a look at this. Oh, it's really nice to see. Your Tuesdays have been fantastic. I can't believe how high the quality of your guests are. Thank you, Soldier. That's really lovely of you to say that. And let's get Cowabunga up. I agree, Soldier. Excited about Paul's new channel. Thank you so much. And yeah, I hope that I deliver and people like the content that I put on. I'm really excited about it. I really am. Thank you. So let's have a little look at one of the other clips that we've got here. What's going to come up next? Okay, wonderful. So the first one up, because it's doing in alphabetical order, is the wonderful Barry Guy. Had lots of fun interviewing him. If you saw Help My House is Haunted, I had a lot of fun hypnotising him as well. And yeah, he's just been a truly great bloke to do that to. And I was in the paper fairly recently about that regression experience. It was a local paper, and it was nice to see Barry share it out as well. So that was really, really good of him. So this is Barry, and the reason why I'm putting this one on, I'll just see if there's anybody else's comments here. No, it's all right. The reason I'm putting this one on is because a lot of people have experiences when they're younger and not quite sure what to do about them, paranormal experiences, and this is Barry Guy's personal experience. And thank you for that lovely comment there, Cowabunga. I really appreciate that. So this is Barry Guy's personal experience. say about some of those early paranormal experiences before you and your friend was completely fine, I remember as well, but some of those early paranormal experiences that you had as a child?
Yeah, I think ever since the age of around 5, I experienced things. I remember seeing a man walking into my cousin's bedroom, looking at me, and then just turning his head and walking straight through the wall. You know, it's experiences like that that stuck with me, and I think I realised that there was definitely something else that was otherworldly. You know, you kind of, as a child, you watch scary films, or you're reading ghost stories, and this is before I ever read, you know, Mysteries of the Unexplained, for example. So I think I had a fascination because it was more of a curiosity, and it kind of, my early experiences, I guess, were, how to put this, smoothed over by the incredible experiences I had from the age of around 9 and 10. I mean, you talked about that Ouija board experience. Well, you know, I went away with school friends on a kind of camping holiday. It was in the Isle of Wight, and the friend that I was with at the time, he had brought with him a makeshift board, spirit board, and we went into our log cabin and we did this game. Essentially, that's what it is. It was a game, and I thought he was moving the planchette. He must have thought I was moving the planchette, but no, we were communicating with someone who pretended to be a young boy, aged around 7. And you know, to cut a very long story short, it was basically fear and excitement at the time that created the whole attack that I had afterwards. I guess leaving Isle of Wight, that spirit followed me. It attached itself to me. It didn't go with my friend Ollie, it came with me. I went to my house back in London, and it took around 6 years for me to get rid of it.
Wow.
And 6 years of being physically attacked. I got punched in the back, objects moving by themselves, had footsteps, taps turning on, doors opening and closing, all your classic paranormal kind of phenomena that people experience now. But it was just terrifying. But I got used to it. But the one thing I didn't get used to was having my name whispered in my ear constantly. I could be sitting at my desk, I'd be doing my homework and stuff, and someone would just go, "Barry," and it would be straight in my ear to the point where, you know, all the hairs stand up on end, and you think, "What's going on?" And yeah, it was pretty terrifying, really. But I had to live with it. We all did.
But you actually had a showdown with the spirit, and I believe from that point that was attached to you, things got a little better then at that point.
Yeah, I must have been around the age of, say, 15, almost 16. And I remember it was summer, my parents were at work, my sister was out. I was doing something in my room, just reading or whatever, and I heard my name whispered again. And this time I got up, I remember standing there, and I felt angry and upset at the same time, a real mixed emotion. And it was around the age of 15 where I got my black belt in karate, and I felt a bit more physically empowered, mentally stronger, and able to cope with things, I guess. And I decided I'd had enough. So I just called this, whatever it was, out. And I stood in my room in, you know, stance, ready for fighting. And I said, you know, "Come on in." I said, "Show yourself. I've had enough. I don't want to be scared anymore, so I'm going to fight you, whatever." And nothing happened. I remember waiting for however many minutes, and I was so frustrated and so angry. I sat back down on my bed, put my hands over my face, and I actually started crying. And I cried because I was so over emotional about the whole thing that, you know, I was thinking, this is just ridiculous. So I was upset. Within a few minutes, I felt this tingling sensation. It started in my toes and it worked its way up my body, and it was almost like the fight or flight feeling that you get when you have adrenaline. But what I found interesting is something that has spurred me on with my research, is that at the time I felt like there was a lot of static electricity coming over my body as well. So it felt like a static feel, felt like what you used to get on an old television screen. I looked up, I took my hands away from my face, I looked up, and directly in my doorway of my bedroom was black smoke that started to form into a mass, and it got thicker and bigger and thicker over a few seconds, thicker and bigger, and it looked like it was in a human kind of torso shape, but it was very, very tall, and it reached the top of my door frame. And I took a step up. I got off the bed, I took a step up, and I think I must have mouthed, what the, literally, It was like, what is that? Am I seeing something here? I was rubbing my, I don't remember rubbing my eyes, but it was that kind of feeling. And as I took a step forward, approximately 10 feet away, I got lifted up off the floor by something unseen, because it didn't move. It just felt like my insides of my body had lifted me off the ground, and I got thrown back onto my bed. Now that is a fantastical, amazing thing to happen to anybody. I wasn't hurt, but I was absolutely petrified at the thought of having no physical power to stop myself from coming off the ground. I curled up in a ball to protect myself, thinking that I was going to be attacked or whatever. Within a few moments, it passed, and I managed to look, and it wasn't there anymore. So I just ran out the room, I ran down the stairs, I ran out of the house, and actually waited outside on our concrete masonette steps at the time, and sat there and waited till my parents got home. But it was after that I didn't hear my name whispered again, and I didn't feel the presence around me or in my house. I don't know whether that confrontation meant that it just decided to leave, but it didn't leave me forever. I have felt the presence on numerous occasions, I guess, over the last 20 odd years. And it's really when I'm at my lowest peak, when I'm kind of feeling sick or lethargic. It's like it will feed off me, it'll grow, it will kind of come back in strength. It's trying to get its way back in, but I won't let it, not anymore.
So that was really good, hearing about Barry Guy's personal experience. Also as well, you can follow Barry Guy. He has got a YouTube channel, but he's most active on Instagram and on Facebook. If you put Barry Guy in, you'll come across him. Make sure you get his fan page, because that's the one that he interacts on. So it'd be interesting to know here in a little bit. And I just, before saying that, thank you for my apple pat, much appreciated. So I'd be interested to know if anybody here has any paranormal experiences that they want to share from when maybe they were younger or now. I know when I was younger, I certainly heard my voice being called when I was in bed, and the way that I heard somebody else describe it, and I thought, yes, that's absolutely right. It kind of sounded like they were calling a name down through a tube. Absolutely terrified me at the time, but fortunately I didn't experience too much else there. Let's just see what people said. So Diane, wow, yep, I mean Barry's experience was quite quite full on to be lifted. I felt touches and things on paranormal investigations before now, once my leg being tapped, and another time it felt like a drip going through me. Very, very bizarre. You know when you have like a raindrop and it like maybe hit your shoulder, but actually it was like it passed through the body. It was very, very bizarre. And somebody I was with had exactly the same experience not long after. Soldier says, I watched Barry on that TV show. Pat Middleton, I often see a big black mountain man walk into my bedroom. Yeah, that actually sounds really quite frightening. But maybe sometimes, as I've said to people, is to build up your confidence against such entities and start taking your power back. I find that really, really good. So you do feel free to ask any questions you like, even if it's from a guest before or one that I haven't picked tonight. It's just been pretty much random picked tonight. It absolutely must have been terrifying, and I can only imagine how terrifying that must be. So we're going to continue moving through now these guests. This is the next one which is come up because it's doing it in alphabetical order. Is the one for Beth Lee Crowler, Psychic Beth. I'm really pleased with Beth because she's a genuine, lovely lady, genuine person, genuine soul. And she's been in the paper fairly recently because they are filming a documentary about her and her work she does as a pet psychic to be shown at some point, I think this year, on Channel 5. So that's on terrestrial TV. So I can't wait till that's out, and I'll certainly be sharing it when it's out as well. But she's so wonderful. She's just got her head screwed on, completely grounded, and she's been on this morning quite a few times. If you put Psychic Beth this morning on, you'll see it when her little dog Misty runs and starts eating the chicken that I think Ainsley Harriott is preparing before, which is quite funny. Anything else that is here before I put that clip on? I've followed Barry for years. Yeah, Barry's a good man. I do like Barry an awful lot. Great chap. Let's put this Beth Lee Crowler on now. Oh yeah, so just before we start, I was showing clips, and because it can be personal, I didn't know if anyone wanted to be brought up again. I decided to show a little bit of my clip, only just a small section of it, because she did spend a lot of time on me with my experience. But I had a particularly fun experience with a peahen that was trying to eat my flapjack, and although this peahen isn't a pet of mine, she was said about psychic messages she's had from animals in zoos and when she saw dolphins. So here we go. Psychic Beth and myself and the peahen. This last video, which I'm going to just show here, is one that I took. Now, I wasn't going to put this in, but I was listening to an interview where you said that you managed to have communication with dolphins and they were giving you philosophy. Now, this video, which I'm going to share with you now, comes from early December. I was with my mum in Newark Park. And I love all animals, but I seem a bit nervous here because a peahen was getting rather interested in my flapjack, and it said, don't feed the peacocks, they peck. And it was looking at me very kind of like, what's this all about? So that's, I love all sorts of animals, but that's why I'm acting why I do up here. So let's have a look.
That'll teach you to take your flapjack out with you.
No, don't peck, don't peck. Don't peck. Don't peck.
Oh, look. What beautiful feathers, though. Look at those greens.
No. Lovely. Oh, okay, be nice, be nice.
That's hilarious. Very inquisitive.
Yes, absolutely.
It's interesting because as you've frozen it, I don't know if you can put that back. I know this sounds really weird, Paul. It was like I could see a man's face behind the peahen.
Oh, right,
okay. Right at the end of the video.
Oh, right, okay, sorry. Oh, it's just gone to... Let me just do that. So there's a man's face. So I'll just run it through.
Like 2 eyes and a nose, and just behind the peahen's head there now. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, in the grass.
Oh, okay.
There. Can you see where the peahen's head is now? When she moves her head. Can you see that image?
Oh, yeah, I can now. I can, yeah. I had to squint my eyes to see it. Yeah, so it might be more clear on a smaller screen.
Yeah, I can just see. And I feel like, I know this sounds mad, but like, one, I feel like she's teaching you to be like really inquisitive. Like, you need to be really nosy. There's so much more for you to accomplish. Come on. Often when I see animals, like I was watching a dog program before we came on tonight. The I can't think, the Graham Hall, the guy who does the dog behaviour program, and like this one dog was attacking the owner's feet, and I was saying it's like, although it's bad behaviour, I'm not taking that away, but often when animals like go to our feet, it's like, come on, you've got to put your best foot forward. There's something that you need to do. You need to get on with it. Don't dilly-dally around. You know, be inquisitive, take the opportunities. And when I look at that peahen, kind of like, you're probably thinking, oh, God, she's going to pet my toes. She's going to pet my legs. And I feel like that is really saying to you, like, there's an opportunity too good to miss. but you might like think, oh, I don't know whether I'm ready. And it's like she's pushing you into something. I feel when we talk about like philosophy, and when I talk about like dolphins and whales, when I went to America, I felt they like talked a bit like collectively, like there was like a spokesperson sort of saying, you know, what we're doing to the planet and all those kind of wonderful things, you know. So I was like amazed when I communicated with them and heard those messages. But like from her, I feel like she was more about like what we miss out on, the way that we miss opportunities because we're too frightened of failure. And I feel like when we look at that beautiful image of a peahen or a peacock, it's such a spiritual bird. And her philosophy is like, you know, come on, if we all looked at the spiritual side of life, then things would be so much better for everybody. If we were all kind, if we all cared about each other, if we all had each other's backs, that gentleness, that kindness, then life would be so much better because we can all get so wrapped up within ourselves. And she's kind of like saying to you, give me a bit of what you've got a flapjack and I want it. And often, you know, when we feel like we're being successful in some way, often you'll get people who are trying to take something from you. Do you know what I mean? And it's about them. We have to be fair, we have to protect ourselves, but also, you know, I just think with animals and I said, oh, I can see that face in the grass. It's about being really grounded and remembering who you are and not developing, you know, a big ego. Not that you're that type of person at all, but I'm just saying that in general, you know. And then as I look at that image in the background and I could see that man's face, it's almost like I could see him. And often when spiritual people or psychic people see faces within other things, it's really a message from the spirit world that somebody's trying to come through and get a message out to you. And it's almost like then we see their face in something. So there's a gentleman that wants to be remembered to you, Paul, that comes through from the spirit world. And as I look at him, he's got what I would describe quite a full face. So quite a rounded, almost chubby face, I would say. Now, the funny thing I get, your name's Paul, but he relates to the name of Paul. And I don't know if his name is Paul too, or whether you were named after somebody, or there's another Paul that he wants to bring in to the mix. So it's almost like he's giving me two Pauls. One, of course, is you, but there's another one. So he gives it in a double meaning. As I link to him, I also feel that there was a lot of pressure in the chest area of the body and within the lungs. And it very much feels like the lungs were filling up with fluid. So would you understand a gentleman that would have had emphysema or pneumonia, but something that would have been pressured in the chest and the lungs filling up?
Well, two people spring to mind. One is my dad died from a blood clot going to his lungs, so his last moments were quite. Thank you. It was kind of quite struggling to breathe. He wasn't really full in the face, although he was on steroids because he had cancer towards the end of his life. So his face did get more fuller. Also, my uncle was quite full in the face, and he's come through along a few times as well.
Let me see if I pick anything else up then, so we can distinguish whether it's which one it is, or perhaps they're both coming in one go. You never know with the spirit world.
My uncle was a heart attack.
Okay, I was just going to say one of them showed me the initial H, but that would be for a name as opposed to like a condition.
Right.
Would either of them be connected to Henry?
Not that I can think. But I know my mum's watching.
Okay, perhaps your mum will know. I'm seeing H ending in Y, which to me would be Henry or Harry. So there would be a connection there. And would one of them have had an interest in golf? It's
yeah,
like
my
I'm
dad had
seeing,
interest in golf. Yeah.
then it's your dad, I believe,
Yeah.
that's coming through, because it's like I'm seeing.
So that's the lovely Beth. I must say hello to a couple of people. Anne Toddington Lucas, Medium Alan Jones, and Headler Webb, who have appeared. And good evening to all of you. I had lots of messages after the Beth show saying how good she was, because everybody was sending in their animal videos, some pictures, and Beth was seeing what she could pick up from it. So Colette, hello to you. I hope that you're doing really, really well. So do any of you that are watching now have any special connection with your animals? Because I know so many people find the animals so very, very healing. And I think that a lot of good can be done with animals. You do actually hear of animals being brought into hospitals sometimes to make people feel a lot happier. Neil Rushton. This is a great review. Thanks for your time on Chit-Chat Tuesday, Paul. And I must say, you're actually one of the clips, Neil. I really, and lots of positive feedback, Neil, from your time on Chit-Chat Tuesday. And I'm really looking forward to tomorrow, because tomorrow on my Past Life Regressions with Paul Goddard channel, I'll be hypnotising Neil Rushton, doing a Past Life Regression. So I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you, Neil. Let's have a look at this. People were saying they could see the face in the grass. Diane, I like Beth's vibe. Felt like I could connect with her. Yeah, she's a lovely lady. She has a wonderful spiritual calling show. I think that's what it's called. Medium Alan Jones, correct me if I'm wrong. But she hasn't done so many recently. I think she will be doing them again. But she's been incredibly busy for filming for this Channel 5 documentary. I don't know if it's one documentary or series of documentaries, but it's really exciting. And if you're joining from my channel, Paul Goddard, wondering what's happening, sometimes I team up with Exploring the Afterlife for the Chit-Chat Tuesdays, and it's coming towards the end. So next week's my last one that I'm doing on Chit-Chat Tuesday. So I thought it'd be a nice time to do a review of everything. And if anybody on my channel is interested in the paranormal investigations, talking about tarot, all sorts of wonderful things, then you can always find that on Exploring the Afterlife. Hello, Buzz. Lovely to see you on here, my friend. Hope you've got my emails okay. Kelly, hi. How are you? Yeah, I'm doing good. I hope everybody else is good, and I hope you're doing really well. And thank you for joining us. Colette says, "I love all my pets, but my black lab." I love all my pets, but my black lab. Don't know what I would do without her. You must be like a special bond, I take it, with the black Labrador. Yeah, absolutely. And I've known pets have managed to really keep people going through some incredibly hard times. So thank you for showing that, sharing that with us. It's lovely to hear that. Anton and Lucas, what a shame you're doing no more, Paul. Enjoying my Tuesday nights. Thank you so much. I mean, Lindsay and Jon said that they'll get me back as a guest on their channel, which would be wonderful, because I always enjoy doing stuff on Exploring the Afterlife. But I have got a new channel which Lindsay said do promote. It's started up and it's in the description. It's Paul Goddard Paranormal. So I'll be doing some things on that, a little bit more travelling to places, not so much the investigations, but you'll see, hopefully it's going to be something slightly different that people will see. So you'll get to see when it starts, hopefully, fingers crossed, if I can get all my other projects finished by then, by about mid-February. I am finishing off a Carl Morris documentary. At the moment, Carl Morris is a professional pool player, and I interviewed him during lockdown, and not long after doing that interview, I started getting a bit more work in, because people were beginning to lift from lockdown, so I was able to see some people And I just really want to finish off because it's an amazing interview. Carl Morris is a deaf pool player, inspiration, also motivational speaker, and he's rejoined the circuit again doing more pool, and I think found his old form again pretty much as he did before. He took time off to look after his parents that weren't too well. Top man, Carl Morris. Really have a lot of time for him. Let's have a look at this one as well. Diane, looking forward to your new channel. Excited to know what it involves. So yeah, I kind of keeping it as a slight surprise to begin with, and I hope that it's a surprise in a good way. And Soldier, my life revolves around Bootsy, my cat. Oh, absolutely. I must admit, I like cats and dogs, but I have a special place in my heart for cats, most definitely. Thank you for sharing that with me and everybody here. Now this is, I think I'll do Carol Green because that would have been the next, but I will go back to Carol because it would be psychic followed by psychic, and I want to sort of break it up a little bit. So I'm now going to go to my dear friend Lynn. This is one of the early ones that I did. In fact, the very first interview that I did with everybody, there's about 5 other people on there, and we were all like little postage stamps. And I was trying to choose something from that, but it was quite difficult to do because there's so many on it. But that was such a fun one to do with the Haunted Magazine, Lorien, and I've forgotten the name now actually, but I'm trying to get on back. The Ghoul Guide, that's it, the Ghoul Guide. So that was really good. So this one now is with my dear friend Nanny Lynn. And this is one of the early ones that I did when she came here, and we did a pre-recorded chat. We sat down with water to begin with, then a coffee later, and spoke together. So this is just a little bit of it about her wonderful books and the excitement she had when she was asked to write one. Wonderful lady. Enjoy this. Books, which I think instead of showing it to the camera, I'll just get a shot up on the screen.
Yeah,
that would be really good. We'll talk about your first one, and what I thought I would do is we talk about the very first book, and then we talk about the second book. But before we go into the second book, I thought I'd randomly open a page and point to something, and then that was something where you've heard a story about or investigated in, and I'm sure it will be a really interesting story. You know, that's my hope anyway, and I'm going to touch some wood.
Don't forget, don't forget though, other people's stories are in there. So,
yes, absolutely.
And I did write it, I know, but I don't always remember what I wrote. I mean, that was 7 years ago, so
if it's wrong, I'll say we'll cut this bit and then do another one.
Go for it.
Go for it. So the first book, so they were actually told to do this one in 3 months' time. The Paranormal Gloucester.
I did,
and it is signed. I've got my mum's one or my one here. I've actually picked up Mum's one to my darling friend Moira, love Lynn, but I've also got another one signed as well by yourself. So,
lovely.
Yes, so how exciting was that to be actually asked to do a book?
Yeah, I never ever thought I would.
Yeah.
Never. Because although I was like top in English, bottom in maths at school, I did like writing and scribbling and doodling, like I said, with the churches and all the rest of it. And then I can't remember how it came about, actually. I think the lady from Amberley, she was like an agent or something, contacted me and said that she knew about my ghost walks, etc. And I said, oh, I never thought of that. So she met up with me and we had a coffee somewhere. And I said, okay, well, and she explained what happens. And I said, okay, I'll have a go then. And from then on, I had like a sort of a contract, I think. I can't remember signing anything, but that there was like a deadline that they wanted it out by. I know it must have been a deadline because everything was in my head and all I had to do was get it down on paper. And I was typing away and all the rest of it. And then I was aware of how long it might take. So sometimes I was staying up till 3 in the morning because however I felt or I wanted to do some writing, it had to be the right time. You couldn't just do it, even though there was a deadline. I had to be right in my own mind to do it. So I was doing it at various different times. But most of the time it was in the day and I was just bump, putting it all down. And then all of a sudden, it was done. And we met up again. I actually gave her all the... I printed it all out for her, That was what we did then. And she took it away. And I think somebody proofread it, whatever. And then the next time we met, we'd arranged for a book signing at Cafe Rene.
That was a fun night.
That was a good night, yeah. And all my books were there. And I nearly cried. I don't know whether I did or... To see my own name on a book was amazing.
I remember you picked one up and you went, yeah.
Did I? Oh, there you go. See, I forgot that bit. Yeah. But it was great because we had the mayor, the sheriff, yourself, your mum. Everybody was there, weren't they? Everybody was there. And it was an amazing night. And Cafe Rene put it on a nice... did we have food or did we have just a drink? I think we just had a drink.
I think it was just drink, but we were allowed to hire the restaurant. I think it was after 9 o'clock when people start relaxing their efforts of eating at that point.
That's it. Yeah, we did. Yeah, so that was a really great, very, very satisfying to see my name on a book, you know. And I always joke and say, you know, if you read it, there's no big words in there because I don't know big words and I don't know how to spell them, but there might be a couple, which always got a laugh. So, you know, and it was mainly about how I started with the paranormal and how I developed into it. I'm not sure whether I don't know whether I mentioned the ghost walks then. I don't think I did I?
I think you did.
Did I? I might have done.
I'm either getting the two books confused in my head by now.
And I mean, there was another lovely experience that I added in there about my brother.
Yes, yeah. Very personal.
Yeah, and very personal. And I couldn't say goodbye to him. Well, I could, but I didn't want to. That's a bit of a story as well. They'll have to read the book.
Yeah.
To that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I know he was there for me one night. He was holding my hand.
Yeah.
And when I told my husband, he said, no, that's a dream. I said, no, it wasn't a dream. I couldn't say goodbye to Pete.
Yes.
So he came and I could feel his hand go in for my hand. And then as soon as I properly woke up, I cried.
Yeah.
And I realised that it was him. And he had cane. Tony Grumpy didn't believe me, but I don't care. I know what I.
As you know, it's your truth. And it's truth and everything. And...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that was another experience, and so that took 3 months to put all that down, which I was really, really chuffed with. But as I say, it was all in my head. I just needed to go on paper. But the second book, Gloucester's Ghost and Giggles, it took me 7 years before I wrote that and published it. Not because it was hard, just things got in the way, I suppose. And I didn't have a deadline.
Yeah.
So I could do it as and when. It's like my third book. I've started that, but I'm nowhere near.
Yeah, I'm going to put something in for it as well because you wanted people's lockdown experience. So it's probably it might have changed, you know.
Exactly. I spoke to somebody yesterday about it and said that that one's not paranormal. It's about how we've coped with lockdown and all the rest of it. And obviously things have changed.
Yes.
Again since then. So I got a lot more to add to that. But the Ghost and Giggles one was mainly about the Gloucester Ghost Walks that I did. For 14 years with my lovely friend Paul, who sat here. Yeah, we started together.
I actually did the forward in this one
You did the forward in the Paranormal Gloucester. You did indeed. Yeah, we had such fun, didn't we?
We did. Yeah. It was good.
So it took 7 years for that one to come out. But as I said, no particular reason. I was just, face it, being lazy.
Well, maybe it was just all the right time and everything.
Yeah, I think so, because with the first one, I just knew when I had to write it and what time and how much and how long I could, you know. With the second one, it was more fun and not so personal.
Yeah.
So I wasn't that worried. But the first one was, it had to be perfect.
My very good friend Lynn Sindri, or is known to many, Nanny Lynn. I must say, let me get these. As Leah, hello to you, Leah. I hope you're doing well. I think there might have been a few people also joining as well. Hello to your silent watchers as well. I can't imagine Paul as a jumper out. No, I didn't jump out. I used to be one of the story tellers, and when I was doing it with Lynn, we didn't have the jumpers. It was more the scarers. It was more spooky, eerie stories that we would go to. We would start off outside the TIC and tourist information, then move to the Old Bell, etc. Going through, Lynn would tell a story, I would tell a story, and it was really good. And then afterwards we would finish up just outside Cafe Rene. When I had left, Lynn would then take people in for a tour down into the basement, and she had some scarers. Some of her scarers had some paranormal experiences. Although only did it for, I guess, just under a year, just over a year. You count the walks we did before when we were with a group called Perk. We just do them every now and then. But it was a really good, enjoyable, very positive memory from that time when we were doing them. And yeah, it was just so nice to do it with Lynn. Met some incredibly interesting people. Often we would go to Cafe Rene afterwards and we would share ghost stories, so people would share their own personal paranormal experiences. As far as I know, when I did the ghost investigation, the ghost walks with Lynn, nobody had any paranormal experiences. But after I'd left, because Lynn continued much longer afterwards, certain people had some paranormal experiences. One of the places where they took people into one time was a pub called the Dick Whittington, and somebody was sitting on a table, I think. Lynn was telling the stories, and this particular person was pushed off the table, and he was really quite shaken by the whole experience. The landlord's manager had to get this particular individual a whiskey to help calm him down afterwards, but I always said he was absolutely shaken. So unless he was a really good actor, I tend to believe. I didn't see it, but that sounds totally incredible. So let's also get Pat's other question up as well. Are there still ghost walks in Gloucester? Yeah, there is a Gloucester Ghost Walks. They bought the name off Lynn. You can find them on the Google search, and they've also got a Facebook site up. But they only do it by appointment. There's also the Ghosts and Giggles of Gloucester. She does them more regularly, although she had a bit of an accident I heard recently, so I hope they're starting again. But she's also interested in doing some potential things in the Folk Museum. So if you put Gloucester Ghost Walks or Gloucester Ghosts and Giggles into Google or into Facebook, you'll come across of it. And this will be, well, I'd be shaken too, yeah, absolutely. I've had light touches by things spooky and paranormal, but nothing compared with that, and I hope I never do either, actually. So let's have a look what else we've got here, because Pat wants to have some of Lynn's wonderful books, put them on the birthday list. Good plan. And Soldier says, which I highly agree with. You'll be happy with them. So very good. Soldier can definitely recommend them. And beforehand there were some comments about the animals. And Pat has 1 horse, 2 cats, 3 guinea pigs, 1 dog, 3 lizards. Yeah, that's. I didn't realise you had 3 lizards. Sorry if you did tell me before. And who else is made a comment here? Because I'm just going back and looking at some comments. No, I think that's good. That's all good. I seem to be up to date. Yes, I can certainly recommend that. They are very well written, and also as Lynn's personality and lovely humour can come across in them as well. And it's like you're having her next to you, telling the ghost stories. And if you do get a chance to see Lynn live, because she doesn't do the Ghost Walks of Gloucester anymore, but she does do events. She's such an excellent speaker, and I promise you, you'll have a really good time and you'll be hanging on her every single word. So I'm going to get the next clip up soon, but if anybody has any paranormal experiences that they've had, potentially been maybe in a haunted place or a ghost walk they've been on, and a story that has particularly interested you, then please put that in the comments. That would be really, really nice to hear your stories. But for now, it's got only a few more left actually. It's always difficult to judge it just right. But I think I'll do the wonderful Neil Rushton, who I'll be doing the Past Life Regression on tomorrow on Thursday the 25th. Neil is huge, he's a fountain of knowledge about all sorts of subject matters, and you know, I'd love to, the sort of person I'd like to sit down and have a good coffee or something with it sometimes and really get to know more about it, because we only really basically scratch the surface of all that he knows. So this is Neil talking about his introduction and how he got interested in the Fae. Are you happy to say your journey to begin with, from being the archaeologist, the ancient sites, and also you went to university in Cambridge, and just how the interest in the Fae first started, please?
Yeah, sure. It's really great to be here. Thank you, Paul, for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And hello to everyone who's watching and in the chat. And hope we get some questions, which I'll try my best to answer as we go along. So I was an archaeologist. I guess I am to some degree still an archaeologist, but this was in the 1990s, and I went to initially for my BA and MA, I went to the University of Southampton, and this was doing an archaeology stroke history degree, and I actually specialized in medieval history and archaeology. But there was quite a lot of prehistory in the BA, so I really got into the prehistoric stuff. And then try and remember, get the years right, 1999, I went to the University of Cambridge to do my PhD, which was on a subject that we won't be talking about at all tonight. It was basically the outer precincts of English medieval monasteries. And how they conducted poor relief. That was the subject of the PhD. But what that PhD did do was really teach me research techniques, how to investigate data and how to interpret data. And so even though it's a subject matter that I've left behind quite a few years ago, it has allowed me to bring that experience, knowledge, expertise into what I now study and have been studying for about 6 or 7 years, which is folklore, and most especially fairy folklore, because for reasons which I'll get into in a moment, this has always been the most interesting part of folklore for me. It's where it's a very major part of, certainly in the British Isles and Ireland, fairy folklore is a major component of the folkloric whole. So that's just briefly what I did. That when I went to university, what I did. But when it was when I was at Southampton, and we're talking about 1996. The years kind of merge into one another when you get to a certain age, don't they? But it definitely was 1996. So I was still doing my BA at Southampton, and some of it, as I alluded to, was looking at prehistoric monuments, and I had a great interest in them. So I would tour around the country on my own or with a friend, just visiting these monuments. And one of the very special prehistoric complexes in Britain is the Avebury complex in Wiltshire, near kind of south of Swindon. For anyone who doesn't know it, it's basically a fossilized Neolithic landscape which stretches over several thousand years, from the early Neolithic to the late Neolithic. And there's obviously Avebury Stone Circle, which is the biggest stone circle in Britain. It might be the biggest stone circle in the world, but don't quote me on that. So there's Avebury Stone Circle, there's Silbury Hill, there's the Stone Rose leading out from Avebury. There's a place called the Sanctuary, which is no longer existent, but very important site in relation to Avebury. And then there are two Neolithic long barrows. So we're talking about 3,500 BC. One's called East Kennet and one's called West Kennet. East Kennet has never been excavated and it's still there. It will contain burials. I don't know whether it will ever get excavated. It's quite a spooky site, actually. I've been on it once, and there's not a very good atmosphere there. There's something was up for me, and I've heard many other people say the same thing about East Kennet Long Barrow. But about less than a kilometre away from East Kennet Long Barrow is West Kennet Long Barrow, and that has been excavated. It was excavated in the 50s by a famous archaeologist called Atkinson, and you can visit it. It's owned by English Heritage. You take a path up from the road, and it's a bit difficult to explain. It's if you don't know what I mean. The reason it's called Long Barrow is because it's about 100 yards of earthen mound long, with a frontage of enormous sarsen stones, which form the entrance, and then there is an entrance into a passageway and a chamber at the back with a couple of side chambers. The burials were found in the side chambers of the barrow, about 50 of them, which were all excavated and removed. But it's much as it was excavated then in the 50s. And one day, I already knew about West Kennet and had visited it several times, but one day in 1996, in the summer, I had just been getting into meditation, just to help me through some of the more stressful aspects of university life, and I'd gotten into it, and I decided to go to West Kennet Long Barrow on my own at dusk, go into the central chamber at the back, and try meditating. And so I did that, and after about 10-15 minutes a figure appeared in the front of the chamber, and the figure is one that I'll show you some images a little bit later which correlate to what that figure may have looked like. But in essence, it was a foot high humanoid with kind of gnarly features that walked towards me in that chamber. The chamber is about 15 yards long, and it walked towards me and looked directly at me. And that experience lasted much less than a minute, maybe 30-40 seconds, something along those lines. And then it walked back and just it didn't disappear, but it kind of went to one side and behind a rock, and that was it. That was the last I saw of it. Now, that was my first, what you could call, supernatural experience, and it was quite revelatory to me. The feeling that I had was not of fear. You would think, sitting in an ancient burial mound at dusk and a small humanoid figure comes towards you, you'd be fearful, maybe climbing the walls to get away, but it wasn't like that at all. There was a very calm, easy atmosphere about the place, probably because I'd been meditating for 10-15 minutes. The rational explanation for that might be, oh, well, you fell asleep and it was a dream. It was not a dream. This happened. I would swear that would happen, and it took me a long time to talk to people about that afterwards. I told a close friend who was understanding and thought that, well, it's a supernatural experience and you should just accept it. But I didn't tell anyone else for a long time, and I certainly didn't tell any of my archaeological compatriots at university, because, well, archaeology, when you're doing a degree, it can be quite materialistic, quite reductionist. and I didn't feel able to go there with that story. And this has resonance later on in my university life in academia, when I started to get into the folklore and the fairies. When I would mention this, certainly to professors and supervisors, they were adamant that you don't go there. You will be discredited. People will simply not believe you and think you're a bit of a head case, and it will potentially ruin your career. And I listened to them, and I kept my mouth shut until such a time, as maybe we'll come on to later, where I left the archaeological world and felt more able and free to talk about not just my own experiences, but my understanding of the fairies and fairy folklore.
Brilliant, totally, completely fascinating man. And Neil, if you're watching still now, thanks ever so much for doing that. We must chat again some point soon. You can see him tomorrow, which is Wednesday. Thank you, Soldier, for picking me up on that. This being called Chit-Chat Tuesday, I think I should know that it's Wednesday tomorrow. We have Anne, who has made a comment about her paranormal experience, but as it's related at the moment, I'm going to read Pat's comments out, and then I'll read Dan's out. So, I'll go back a bit. There was a huge battle between Seelie and Unseelie Court, and people are asking what that is. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, correct as well. Seelie Court, there are two Fae who are more likely to interact with humans. The Unseelie are the Fae who won't and will cause trouble. So really interesting things. And if you want to see fairies on Midsummer Night, tie ribbons and bells onto trees, and the trooping fairies will visit. Also as well, one of my favourite destinations to travel to is the Isle of Man. Absolutely love the Isle of Man. The very first time I was in the Isle of Man, I was with a friend, and they have a ferry bridge in the Isle of Man that from Ronsway Airport to Douglas, you pass over this ferry bridge, and there's a fairy tree next to the ferry bridge. And as you pass it, walking or travelling in the car, you're supposed to say good morning, good afternoon, fairies, and it's supposed to give you luck. And back then, I had my interest in the paranormal, but I really didn't think too much about the face stuff at that point until I started doing these things, looking more into it and really seeing what other people's experiences are. But I do remember we were approaching it, and they was just saying to me that, because we were having a flight, so I just had to say good morning, fairies, because we were getting a morning flight. But you do see on that tree people putting cards and things on there, sending wishes to the fairies to give their, say, uncle good luck who's racing in the TT or the Grand Prix there. So yeah, there's lots of myths and legends. The Cloak of Manhana, an Irish sea god, protects the island with its mist. Wonderful place. If you get a chance to visit the Isle of Man, I highly recommend it. Neil, thank you, because it's the computer and my camera at the moment is some distance away. So let's see what Neil says. Thanks for including me in the review. Wes Kennick's experience lives with me still in high resolution. I'm glad I can talk about it freely. Yes, so are we. And I think that academia's loss and our gain for those people who are truly interested in everything in life. Let's go through and see Anne Toddington. This is her ghost paranormal experience from the previous one. So let's get this one. I was a night carer, and one night the home went cold. Then a lady figure in a long nightie walked up the room and straight out the front door. It was freezing. It's interesting how the temperature can drop. I've certainly experienced in the Ram Inn at Wootton Under Edge, cold spots. and other people experienced it as well. Somebody who was said he was quite skeptical, but then was putting his hands out and feeling for ley lines. So I don't think he was too excited. I think he was open-minded, I think, more than skeptical. But this was really interesting. It was in one corner where there's supposed to be a child's grave in the Raminant Woodland. I don't know how many of you have been there at all or seen it on television. But this was like pushing your hand into cold water, and the edge was very well defined. So it wasn't like, oh, it feels a bit cold there. You could literally feel your hand going in and out. It was really quite extraordinary. Let's see what else we have got coming up here. Yeah, I've been to West Kennet Longbow, and I think that I really like it actually. I think West Kennet Begins sounded like a gnome. I think the West Kennet Begins sounded like a gnome. Yeah, there's all sorts of different things, and if you want to see Neil Rushton's full interview, that is on Exploring the Afterlife. So if you're watching through Exploring the Afterlife, you can go back and see it. If you're watching on my Paul Goddard channel, you can go through and see it on that. So I'm just going to double check we've got any messages. I've just got 2 more clips to play, sadly, but I hope that you have enjoyed tonight. One of them is actually very, very short, but I did move them around a bit. And this is Carol Green. Now, Carol Green is a local medium, and she does stuff at the Earsborne. I've filmed her and spoken to her before, and I thought she'd be ideal for the show. And she explains here in this clip I'm going to play how she got interested in the world of spiritualism and spirits. I kept saying as well, what do you pick up? And she doesn't like using using pickup. I've forgotten what she said she likes using, but so I said to all my guests, if I get anything wrong, do let me know. Let's see this. Paul, would you be so kind to put a post on ETA about your new channel with links to it, please? Soldier, thank you. I haven't got access to do that, but I'm sure if I ask them nicely, they will. But if you go into the description of this video, read down, you'll see the link to my Paul Goddard Paranormal channel. There's just one video on there at the moment, just saying welcome everybody, and you'll be seeing some things appearing soon. But that's what's on there for now. So there is a link to it, but I will ask them nicely as well. So let's play Carol Green now. To begin with, your very first psychic experience when you felt unseen hands touching your elbow. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah,
really
you've got a good memory, Paul. Well, good evening, anyway. Good evening, everybody else. Yeah, I mean, I was, excuse me, I was a civil servant at the time, so I'm a pretty practical lady, brought up, didn't know the word spirit, didn't understand anything clairvoyant, never in my remit, to be perfectly honest. But I had what I like to call an emotional breakdown. And, one of those periods in your life where, you sort of got yourself into a bit of a muddle. And I'd lost a lot of weight. I was quite weak. And I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And as I was walking around the bed to go and get a cup of tea, I literally felt a hand on each elbow. Now, at that time, because of the way I was, quite shut down, I was like, oh, thank you. Really weird. Went down, got a cup of tea, went back to bed. I would like to say the next morning I woke up and went, Eureka, I'm healed, but that wasn't the case. And I kept getting the thought about going into the Spiritist church. Now, obviously, I learned as the time went on that we call it being impressed with a thought. And so I went to the local Spiritist church, had no idea. I had to go and find it first. I had no idea where I was going, just walked in, sat down for a service. Very pleasant. Nobody spoke to me. Didn't know what was going on whatsoever. But I'd had a sort of a traditional Church of England background when I was younger. So we had the hymns and the prayers. So it was all pretty okay until they come to the bit where there was a lady giving messages that I was sat there just wondering what on earth was going on, quite frankly. But anyway, because of the way I was, I went back the next week because it was actually nice and peaceful. And went back every week, actually, so I didn't have much of a life at the time. That's what I usually like to say. And then I was invited to join what they call the Open Circle. And this is at Cheltenham Spiritualist Church in Bennington Street. So I turned up on this Thursday night, not knowing what was going to happen. 7:30 prompt, the door was locked. The lights were lowered. There were some small red lights in the room. And all these people were sat in a circle. Whereas a lady called May Scott was the president, and she was taking the evening. And she said, oh, well, let's all go into the quiet. Well, I didn't even know what that meant. So I just followed everybody else, and they were all sort of sat there with their eyes closed, and they had their hands out like this in front of them. So I thought, oh, that's obviously what you're meant to do. I better copy them. So I did. And then sat there, keep peeking, because I just felt very odd. And at the end of the session, after about an hour, this lady went round and spoke to everybody that was there that evening. And she used to say, and what did you get, dear? She was a very sweet little Welsh lady, born into spiritualism. So she would ask everybody, and people would say things like, well, I saw this lovely blue colour, or I saw a butterfly. And some of the more experienced would actually give a message to somebody and say, well, I've got your granddad here. And I'm sat there going, this is really weird. What am I doing here? And then she'd come to me and she said, and what did you get? And I went, well, nothing. Oh, okay. And this went on for about 3 months. And I don't know why I kept going, because I just did. And every week I used to say, no, I didn't get anything. And I really thought I'd lost the plot, quite frankly. And one day there was another lady in the chair called Sylvia Charliewood. Bless her, she's recently passed. And I'm sat next to her. And so when she asked the question and I said, oh, nothing. And she said, oh, yes, you did, dear. And I sort of pulled myself up and looked at her a bit strange. And she used a phrase that nobody had said to me. She said, it's like a thought that goes in your mind and keeps repeating. And I'd been sat there thinking I was daydreaming with this picture going like a Rolodex going round in my head. So I described it. And this lady opposite said, oh, yeah, that's my uncle. And I'm like, this is really even more weird, because I was sitting there expecting to see people in the physical walk up and down the room, because I knew no better, quite frankly. And so I gave another message later that night. So I thought I was the best thing since sliced bread. I was going to be a medium next week, aren't I? I'm going to be working up on that platform where they turn up every Sunday. And it's almost like what I say in retrospect, is almost like it's the carrot that got you interested. Because being a civil servant and a Virgo, I wanted to know, what's that about? What sense does it make? So I then started to pursue it. So I turned up every week, got invited to a private circle. Then I was moved with my job to London, and I was there for 5 years, and that's where I did the majority of my training. College of Psychic Studies, beautiful church in Notting Hill, Independent Spiritualist Mission, the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain. So you could go in London, you could go to St. every night and every weekend. There was always something going on. And so I was, soaking it up like a sponge. And because I now teach, I feel that I went through all that and made so many mistakes purely so I would understand it more, so that I'm able to teach it to, budding mediums today. All the pitfalls, yeah, because there's a lot of pitfalls, and I was rubbish. I'll be honest, I was quite rubbish because I believed everything, so it would all come out of my mouth thinking it was right. Yeah.
Wonderful lady there as well. Let me close that window down. Just going to read out some messages as well. Betty, is this tonight's live? So tonight's live, Betty, is basically a review of some of the guests that have appeared on Chit-Chat Tuesday, because this is the penultimate one that I'm doing. There's a link in the description. I'm starting a new YouTube channel called Paul Goddard Paranormal, and I thought it'd be really nice to, as it's getting towards the end, so I've got one more show next week, to just go through and pull out some of the guests that have appeared throughout the year. So I started on one of the really early ones with Lindsay and Jon interviewing me. And don't worry, I will be appearing on Exploring the Afterlife from time to time. Lindsay and Jon have said that, you know, please be a guest, and there'll be other times when they're doing paranormal investigations that I said I'll be invited on. So I'm looking forward to that. So that'd be really, really good. Now, Pat was asking about the gnome when we had Neil Rushton on just a moment ago. I'll just read out this. Pat Middle, yes, mostly resembled the image by Brian Froud. Have I said his name? I do hope I said it right. I was predisposed to see it as such, having known Froud's images. I'm not sure, but it was an outstanding experience. And Pat has put here, it must have been both terrifying and amazing in equal measure. I'd love seeing something like that. Well, there's plenty of time, Pat, for you to see some wonderful and amazing like that. If they never look like Disney images. I really like the images that were shown to us by Neil Rushton last time round. Let's have a look. I was clicking around, then realised it was an old one. I was listening to sorry, get that up. Listening to Jeezy Peeps. I hope that you're enjoying this review, this look back over some of the guests that I've had. Pretty much coming towards the end now. In fact, I just got one more to show, which is quite a short one. Doing my best to do the right timing for about a 90-minute show, so it might just be fractionally under that at the moment. But if anybody has any experiences they want to say, please say. The reason why I'm putting this clip in now, because I thought it was an important one. Now, this was done at Christmas time. And the wonderful Neil story does talk about Christmas, but I think it doesn't need to be Christmas to have that connection with people. And Neil's story, again, on the Exploring the Afterlife, all the videos that have been up, was talking about Bram Stoker. And Bram Stoker is very close to his heart, very, very, very special to him. And this is what he had to say, and I think it's an important message for us to all to live by any time of the year. Absolutely amazing. It's literally 2 minutes left. Is there anything out of all the wonderful about Bram Stoker's life, your experiences, your books, anything that I haven't asked you that you thought, you know, that would be, that's what I'd like to finish with?
We must talk again, because there's plenty we haven't covered, and I would love to do that.
Thank you, Neil.
The thought I would love to share and leave people with is a poignant thought for this time of year, and it's very Bram. If you were a Bram, you and Bram were friends, you would be friends for life. Bram knew what that was, to cherish friendships. And so that's my message, and that's one thing I'd say to everybody. People talk about the season of goodwill. Well, if there is a friend that you haven't reached out to for a long while, and you might get rebuffed, there is a danger. Where have you been? You left me for dead. Well, fair enough. But maybe, just maybe, they're missing you. So no matter how long it may have been, reached out. Just reach out. Say, Merry Christmas. Let's have a yarn. Grab a coffee. We haven't spoken for ages. And that's what I think Bram would like everybody to do this Christmas.
I absolutely loved those words, and I thought, absolutely, I'm going to do that and meet some people. Then I was ill over Christmas. But I think it was kind of a situation this Christmas just gone, who was actually healthy during Christmas. There were so many bugs and everything going around. But, you know, I don't think it needs to be Christmas for you to reach out to people, particularly people you haven't seen for such a long time. So I'm going to read this out now. It's been great watching all this. Thank you. And Colette, thank you very much for saying that. So I'm pretty much, that's it. Oh, thank you. And likewise, Pat. Yes, indeed. That brings me to the end of this Chit-Chat Tuesday. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed going down memory lane. There's so many all the guests that have been on Chit-Chat Tuesday, and that's not just the guests that I've reached out to, that's the guests that Lindsay and Jon have invited on, and Lindsay and Jon themselves have been absolutely amazing. Yeah, if you really liked any of these people tonight, do follow them on social media, share out their posts. You know, they work hard in their field, and they will like it very much. Buzz, a good friend Buzz, I enjoyed it as well. Thank you, Buzz, that's lovely to hear. Soldier says, great night, Paul, very interesting, thank you. And Cowabunga says, love this flashing through the past. It's good to do that, isn't it? It's good to do that. And I've enjoyed sitting back and relaxing a bit and hearing from these wonderful guests. So I'm going to say good night now to people, because I know that tomorrow for many of us is a school day. Whether you're finishing today and going to be going to bed soon, or whether you're watching from somewhere else in the world and your day's just starting, I hope you have an outstanding one. I hope you have had an outstanding one. I hope tomorrow is amazing for you as well. Next week, I'm really hoping to, for the last one, have a bit of a chit chat with Lindsay and Jon. I think that would be an amazing way to finish all this. But I've absolutely loved it, and I'd like to thank everybody, Lindsay and Jon, and everybody who's joined in, for making me feel so welcome. Thank you, everyone. I shall be seeing you next week, and you'll be seeing me about on social media as well. Thank you, Colette. Good night, everyone. Sleep well.